everybody, and thank you for joining the Move podcast. Today is a great day. There is this girl out there. She's a life coach. Her name is Heather Nickel, and I ran into her in one of these, I think it was a photography job I was helping somebody out with, and we started talking, and it's interesting. There's a lot of overlap in our lives, and sometimes you have synchronicities and people come in your life that have a lot of similarities. And I wanted to get her on the show because she has a very interesting story and she's doing some good things to help people move. The idea of this whole podcast is the Move podcast. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to introduce her really fast or really slow and have her give us an idea of who she is, where she came from, and what she's planning on doing. So without further ado, Heather, I kind of, it wasn't all that great of a introduction, but if you have a second, I'd like to, well, I guess there's nothing else that you can do, right? Because you're stuck. We got the cameras rolling.
So let's go for it.
So give me an introduction for people out here that have never heard of you or seen you. Who are you?
Well, I am Heather Nickel, life coach, owner of Beyond Better Life, and my mission is to put the power back into women's hands, and I do work with men too, so put it back into their hands. My mission is to really empower people and let them know that whether it's sickness, depression, anxiety, addiction, that they do have power. They don't have to stay in victim mode, that they can take some control. And I find immense joy in helping them do that and teaching them the tools, because I was exactly where my clients were years ago. So I know it's possible, and I just think it's a very important message to get out there.
Is that what spurred you to become a life coach? When did the switch turn on that you said, you know what, I need to take my skill sets and direct it in this way?
Well, it's a funny story because the first experience that I had with a life coach was in 1999. And I had my broker, I was in real estate, hired a life coach for me. And it had such a profound impact and trajectory in my life as far as finding my husband at the time and moving forward in my business. I was like, wow, there's something to this. This is exciting. Now, that was high performance coaching and like business coaching, but it still had a huge impact in a short amount of time. And so it piqued my interest, but I was in real estate. And so I just put it on the back burner, and it was just always there in the background. And it was always a desire. And then, of course, life happens. I got married. I had kids. I was a stay-at-home mom and was in real estate and sales. So I just kept putting on the back, but it was always in the back. And what spurred that, where I was just like, I just got to take the leap, was actually it was in 2018. I was in my corporate job doing very well, single mom at home. And I was like, I just have to do it. There's like, what other time is there to, take a leap of faith? And so I enrolled in the Integrative Institute of Nutrition, and I got my certification. It was a year-long program, and I started my business, Beyond Better Life.
Did you have any hiccups? Did you have any setbacks? Because it sounded like you were trying to get into it for a while, and I would imagine that your self-confidence probably wasn't all that high. I would imagine. Did that happen? Were there times where you questioned yourself if this was the right thing?
Every day. Still. I think that's just human nature. There's ebbs and flows of everything. It was a really long process because I had so much self-doubt. And that's another thing that I I like to coach on is to have emotional mastery so you don't get caught in that tunnel of doubt, because that was a time warp for me. I started self-development 30 years ago. So I started courses, I did Marianne Williams, and I became a Reiki master, and I've done so many different programs over the years. So this is an accumulation of education and just going in and out. So it's, yeah, there was always that doubt, and that's why it took so long for me to get here. But I'm also a firm believer in everything happens in perfect timing. So this is the time that I was supposed to be a life coach, and I just turned 50, and I'm looking forward to the second half of my life, and no better way to do it than be a life coach.
I definitely think it's a secret. It's a secret that's not a secret. If you want to be successful, if you want to have joy, if you want to have what you want, then you help other people get what they want. And it's like this mirror of reality that is the truth, you know? And so I think what you're doing is obviously good for a lot of people out there. When you started and you transitioned from the corporate job to coaching, there are a lot more freedoms that you have of being your own coach. And how did you transition your discipline? How did you transition your accountability in order to set that pace, in order to be your own boss? And
I hired a coach.
that was it, huh?
Yeah. Yes, I had coaches while I was in IIN, and as I transitioned out of school and I graduated and got my certification, I hired a business coach. And because
and that's the business coach that you had just mentioned earlier.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, having a business coach, and it was not only a business coach, but it was an entire team that taught me about social media and every aspect of the business. And honestly, he just showed up with accountability and was just always there and keeping me accountable. And just every time I had a doubt would shift me into mindset. He also had a mindset coach on his team, which then I was her client for a year. Yeah, Brooke Ritchie is an excellent mindset coach, and I actually brought her into one of my programs because I know mindset is so important in every aspect of life.
Wow. So having a performance coach and then also a mindset coach, and how is that incorporated in what you're doing now?
Well, let me go backwards. So the performance coach was back in 1999. So that was, with the real estate. So the business coach that I hired was for coaches, and that was right, in 2020 when I graduated. So different coach.
Got it. Okay.
So yeah, I've had a few.
And the mindset was in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how has that affected or impacted your business and what you do today?
The mindset coaching?
Mindset and performance, as far as I guess here's what I want to get at. What is it that you are offering a clientele, somebody that's out there right now that's like, hey, I need help in life in whatever aspect. I wonder if this person can help me. What is it that you have learned that you can bring to the table to help somebody improve their life?
Well, that's a loaded question. So you're going to have to rewind the clock on that, because I have so many different aspects that I bring to the table for my customized one-on-one coaching, because I don't believe that it's just that one thing. So that's why I always resonate towards a life coach instead of labeling myself as a mindset coach or performance coach or any of that. Because if your health is suffering, you're not going to be able to show up and take aligned action. If your relationships are suffering, you're not going to be taking action in your business. It's all intertwined. So I have gotten training in every aspect of life because it's a balance. And we have to switch from one area of life to the other to make sure that you are performing at your best or getting the most out of life. And why I said rewind is because I found myself in my 30s. I was overweight. I was 100 pounds overweight, and my health was suffering greatly. I had multiple autoimmune issues. I was unable to get out of bed. I had 2 small children. I've always had anxiety, depression has always been in the mix. And I was just miserable. And I would go to the doctors and every aspect of my body hurt. And I was the most negative person you have ever met. Like, wow. I actually lost friends over being negative. My nickname was Negative Nancy. And it was a horrible life. And I spend most of my time going to doctors. And I'd go to the doctor and they would say, they could pile on the medications. I had up to 9 medications at one point. And the side effects of the medications, I was just miserable. And the doctors were like, well, this is it. This is how you're going to live. And I thought, this can't be it, because this is horrible. Like, I don't want to continue like this. And I have 2 small children and a life ahead of me. I'm in my 30s. So that's when it started, where all of those things that I had learned in my past, I thought, I need to start implementing those, because it was like my rock bottom. And I was using alcohol to cope because I was in a lot of pain. And so I would use the wine to relax. And so I started with the nutrition and focusing on what I can take out of my diet, because it turned out it was food intolerances that was really exasperating the medical conditions. So that was my first step, is taking out the food intolerances, losing the weight. And then I started with the mindset and implementing the Reiki and energy healing to heal my body, and moving into breath work and embodiment work and inner child work. So all of that is in the mix, including mindset.
So when you say breath work, I think most people understand that. I think a lot of people lack knowledge of the depth of what that represents. But when you say embodiment, I don't really understand, what is embodiment.
So embodiment is a culmination of many things. So you have your mindset, and that's where coaching is headed, is in an embodiment, because the buzzword has been mindset, mindset, mindset. But what the missing link is that when we work with the mind, we're working with the thoughts, which is an important thing that we need to do. We have to address the negative thoughts. But what's missing is that we have emotions attached to those thoughts, and they reside in the body. And with breath work and somatic work, somatic coaching, we actually get into the body, detach the thought from the feeling, so then the feeling and the emotion can go through. Because a lot of the times when we're doing the mindset work, or you're doing your affirmations, and you have that nagging feeling in your body, like, your body's like, hell no, this isn't working. Like, you can tell me anything you want, but I'm not believing you. And that's because when you've had a traumatic event in your past, you had an emotion in your body. And sometimes, a lot of the times, you stuff that emotion. You don't cry, you don't scream, you don't throw a tantrum because you're, quote, an adult, right? We can't do that. So when we don't let it out, it gets stuck in the body. And you're going through life, and all of a sudden you feel great, but you feel this like nagging tension, something in your body, and your brain is trying to protect you, right? So it's like, ooh, this is uncomfortable. What is that? And it, without you knowing it, and your subconscious goes back to that traumatic event. And all of a sudden you're irritable, you're sad out of nowhere, and then you label it depression or anxiety, when it's not. It's just an emotional block that you had in your body that wasn't moved through. So embodiment work is the combination of doing mindset work and somatic work to move those past traumas out of the body. So when you do the mindset work, you actually believe it. And where you connect it and integrate it with the emotion, the feelings in your body as well.
I like that. It's not something that I was familiar with. So it's almost like you're reframing, you're rooting out the cause and you're detaching it so people can be free.
Yes.
Free of the ties that bind them.
Yes. I like to think of it as taking the root out. So if you're in a garden and you just, take a weed and you just cut it out or pull it out, but you don't get that root, it comes back. So what happened is that I was noticing, because I've been doing this life coaching now going on 5 years, I was noticing in the beginning when I was just doing the classic coaching and I was doing the nutrition work and I was doing the coaching work and I was doing some mindset work, that about 50% of my clients would be great and excel, go out in life and excel, but some weren't. And I got curious to, why is that? Why is it working for some and not others? So then I went back to training. And that is when I started integrating the somatic work, because I knew that we had to get the root out. So then they wouldn't revert back to their old patterns.
Got it. So Sky and I had a big conversation about behavior modification, and basically when somebody is triggered, there's a cue, and then their mind, they've basically taught themselves to do a bad habit. And so in order to change that, is the cue still exists, but instead of, like, for example, somebody going down, they're eating too many donuts. Mm-hmm. Why are they eating too many donuts? They don't know. Then they figure out, okay, on my way to work, there's a billboard and it has a donut, and that puts it in my mind, and then I'm hungry, and then I start tasting a donut and I want a donut. So I've heard that you can't you can't ignore that sign because you know it's there, right? If you do that, you're going to fail. But what you can do is you can see that sign, recognize that it is a cue, and then when you are cued and triggered, you substitute something else. So instead of donut, you think bagel, and then you're using the existing framework, and then you're supplanting, a positive modification behavior. And my question is, when you do the somatic work, the embodiment work, you take that, you disconnect that emotion from a previous trauma, and the thought is you're able to see it for what it's worth, and it's not triggering that emotion anymore. Do you use affirmations to then help supplant the negative emotion, or how is that?
It's a little bit more involved than that, because there's a series of things that we do. So as I am doing the mindset work with them, which is challenging that thought. And so once we break down, there's usually a route back to childhood of why they need that donut. Like, say we'll use that donut. I mean, and that's I like that you use that analogy of driving to work and getting that donut, right? Because it has so many different components, and that's why I'm certified in integrative nutrition coaching as well, because I bring that in, because your body's going to crave whatever you feed it. So the first step is that my client would get off sugar. And so
that's a rough one, I know.
Well, I make it painless, so it's really not that bad with integrating some supplements that get rid of the cravings. And so we do all that. So that would be one component of that behavior, because your body's going to crave that. The other is, as you're driving to work and you see that picture, what does that picture represent to you? And in some, it's like, oh, I see that donut. It reminds me of fun. It reminds me of indulgence. Okay, let's go. Where in your life are you not having fun and not indulging? Because there's all these different aspects. And where can we substitute that eating, that serotonin boost you get from that donut? Where can we get it? Through action, through life experience. So in that situation, if that's what my client came to me for, it would be on a nutritional level, it would be on a mindset level, and really figuring out where You would be shocked how many times at the beginning session with a client, I ask, what do you do that brings you joy? And they'll either break down crying because they don't know. They can't remember. I don't remember the last time I felt joy. And it's sad that that's usually the answer.
That is sad.
Yeah. And it's because all of these adults are out there in the world just trying to make it, just surviving and not thriving, which none of us should live like that. None of us. And I got sidetracked, but the joy, doing really focusing on what brings you joy. The joy journal is a huge, tool. It's a great one. So I have my clients throughout the day just notice, like, if you talk to somebody on the phone and after you get off the phone, notice your energy. Where are you? Are you up? Or did that conversation bring you down? If it brought you up, I want you to journal. Who was the person? What was the thing? The same with the food you eat. What do you eat that actually fuels you and brings your energy level up? Because that's considered bringing you joy. And is it meditation? Is it walking outside with your dogs? Anything that brings, you're like, oh, wow, I feel good. Write it down. Because then you get that list of things that bring you joy that you can always resource to, because we get out of the habit of not feeling it. So when we bring attention to it, then they can really be aware of it and like, okay, I'm going to do more of that. And, most of my clients are busy. They're usually business owners or realtors or some stay-at-home moms that are actually working. They don't have time. That's the number one thing. I don't have time. So I like to multitask. And when I say multitask, it's not in the way that you would think, where you're sitting and you're on your phone and you're feeding your kids, not that kind of multitask, but sitting there and say you're cooking dinner, you'll be listening to a podcast that brings you joy, that sparks your imagination, and you're cooking. So you have a couple of tasks going on. You're taking care of your health, nutrition as you're cooking this healthy meal. You're listening to the podcast that fuels your self-growth, right? And then you sit down and you have dinner with your kids and you put away the cell phone, and then you have the joy of connection with your kids. So right there, you just hit 3 points of life: nutrition, education, connecting with your loved ones, all in a 30-minute time span.
Wow. And my guess is that people are surprised at the amount of moments that they can create with their families, and that they're probably like, wow, why was I not doing this before? I would imagine that happens a lot.
Yeah. They're just like, wow, that was easy. Like, because so many, especially women, at the end of the day, they're like, I feel like a failure. Like, I kicked ass at my job, but I wasn't there for my kids today, or I wasn't there for my spouse today, or I wasn't being able to be intimate with my spouse because I had so much on my plate for business. It's like, I can never win. I hear that so much from women in particular. It's like, and then I show them or coach them, and okay, how can we mix these in? Like, you need to work out. Great. Your spouse and you can go to the gym. You need to work out, bring your kids. And then as you're working, as you're driving to work, put in your podcast. I'm a big fan of like really small meditations. I do meditations for my clients, and I'll give them breathwork exercises and meditations that are under 3 minutes. Great. Sit in your car before you go into the office and do your meditation and your little breathwork to get you centered and grounded and up to the office. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time at all. It shouldn't take. It actually, if they do it correctly, you have more time in your day, because I find that if you're not balanced and not doing things that bring you joy, then you're surfing on your phone, on social media. You go down the rabbit hole of TikTok or YouTube. And before you know it, you just lost like 2.5 hours. But when you become more aware, more intentional with your day, you're actually saving time and having more a more quality, balanced life.
More pockets open up.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I've struggled in my next transition of what I'm doing, because I'm trying to figure everything out, and I have a lot of pressure that I've put on myself. Like, we got to get this done now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certain things you just have to. There's certain timing that time is not in your control. Sometimes it just takes time to. You have to experience the pangs of impatience, right? To truly understand why impatience can be negative, right? And so anyway, I guess I'm also going on a tangent. With you, what I see is that you've brought a lot of different life experiences, and that you can really help people. Not just, if certain people are out there and they have preconceived notions of what a life coach is. I know I have.
Yeah.
Until recent,
what is one? What is
that a life coach is basically somebody that can talk well, that has a template that they've picked up on the internet that says you should do X, Y, and Z, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that is going to keep you successful. And they're, preaching that, stay positive. If you're positive, then everything, if you can believe it, then you can achieve it. Mm-hmm. That's a life coach, right? Mm-hmm. And there's an air of bullshit that comes along with that. I'm just being straightforward.
Yeah, and straightforward.
Yeah, and that's the only, and I know I know I can say that to you because I've heard you be straightforward, and I like that, and not mm-hmm. many people can do that. They're too tactful, and you're like straightforward, and so I just wanted to address that, because some people are like, okay, life coach, mm-hmm. And what do you have do you have anything that you can say to that?
Well, yeah, we have all that preconceived notion of just motivation, rah-rah-ree, get up, 5 a.m., bust it out, do your affirmations, everything will be good. If you're just committed enough, you'll be successful. And that, I would say, is some life coaches. It's also a lot of like motivational people, but I believe the profession is what I'm noticing, is evolving, and they're combining. I'm seeing a lot more of, I've gone by so many labels: a transformation coach, intuitive coach, integrative nutrition coach. I'm board certified by the drugless practitioners. So all these different labels, but what it boils down to is, for me in my business, it's an integration. It's an integration of meeting the client where they're at and getting to their values and vision as a core, and then building on that. Now, if you ask somebody that is in the pit of despair because they just got divorced, or their husband died, or their children are having huge mental health issues — these are some of the issues my clients have that come to me — and they're devastated, right? And you tell them to do affirmations, they're going to say, go to hell. Like,
yeah,
bye.
I can see that.
Yeah, that's not going to resonate with them. So I give them, we start at where they're at. And one of the techniques that I love using is that give that part of you that is sad and despair, give that emotion a voice. And I allow my clients to have a temper tantrum, to just voice, to be petty, to be judgmental. Sometimes I role play and I just tell them, yeah, pretend I'm that person. Like, just let it out. Like, let that frustration out. And sometimes that has to be the first step before we can build onto that, because it has to be released. And then we can move on with actionable steps. Like, I pride myself on little baby steps. I've been called a Jedi, a Jedi coach, because they're like, it's weird. I've changed in 6 months completely, but I don't know how, because just these little tiny action steps that she gives me, has a change. So with back to your original question about life coaches and that aspect, it's really being intentional of there's so many different coaches out there, and to really look at their reviews, and also a lot of coaches, including myself, will offer like a 30-minute connection call to see if we're a right match. So what I'd say to that is, test out, interview coaches before you commit to one, because some will be rah-rah-ree, some will be more integrative like myself, where we're going to do inner child work, and we're going to do somatic work and breath work and nutrition work. And also for me, I sprinkle a little energy healing in there with Reiki. So it's everything. It's whatever my client needs, because sometimes they need water and sometimes they need fire. So, and that can vary week to week. So it just depends on what they need.
So water and fire, that's great. My question is, I have like 15 questions just off the top of my head, but I'm going to get back to the energy stuff. What point did you decide to incorporate Reiki into your practice? Was it something that you had personally experienced, or somebody had been there for you and done that and opened your eyes? Or was it just something that you've had a feeling for that you just kind of sought out?
It was to bring it into my coaching. I never intended to bring it into my coaching at all. I thought it was separate. I brought it in intuitively. It just helped me get in tuned with what my client needs at that time. It helped me, quote, read the room, right? And just really be empathic. And when I say empathic, just putting myself in their position and feeling their energy, to really like just hold space for them and really give them what they need at that time. And as far as Reiki goes, I started Reiki, when my son was 2. I became a Reiki practitioner for him.
How old is he now?
He's 15, so 13 years ago. That's when I started my journey.
How did you get into that?
They said that it would help with tantrums and calming children down. And my son had colic, and he always had the tantrums. And I was like, okay, well, what do I have to lose? So I went into and did Reiki 1, and then went on to Reiki 2, and then went on to become a Reiki master.
So did the Reiki help your son?
When he lets me do it.
So they have to be open. It's not like you can walk in and affect somebody unless they are open to it. They
have to accept, yes. They'd have to say yes to the healing. That's one of the guidelines. Yeah, you do have to get their permission. For him, even when he was young, I would start running Reiki on him, and he would just look up and turn around and go, no. Because he felt it. I would be feet away from him and he would feel it. And I was like, okay. The only time he's let me do it on him is when he broke his arm, and after surgery. So anytime when he's in great pain, he'll let me do it. Now, my other son every day, please. Like,
he wants the attention.
Yeah.
So I can see, okay. My next question is, how, I know that we didn't want to have this whole thing about Reiki. It's like you've incorporated it, but that's not your main thing. So that's not your main thing with the life coaching. But the fact that you have that, that's just why I want to touch on it, because it inspires curiosity with me. And so with what instances have you found that Reiki has done better than any other modality?
I wouldn't say that it's done better than any other modality. It's just amplifies all the other modalities. So it is also like I just had a coaching client come in for a Reiki session because he was unable to, when we would work on the mindset work, and we would go back to like emotions. He had a hard time expressing emotions and really stuffing them down. And we just kept coming up against a wall. So I said, come in for a Reiki session in person. So I did a Reiki session on him, and I was able to move trauma through his body. And that's the great thing about Reiki, is that you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to tell me you have it. It's when I'm doing Reiki, I can feel it, so I can move it throughout your body. And that's a benefit of Reiki, because when you use talk therapy, it's helpful for some, but it wasn't helpful for myself. So that's one of the drivers why I sought alternative ways. Because for me, if I talked about trauma, it would bring me back to that exact place, because your brain doesn't know between past and present and future. If you're talking about it, it's happening right now, and it was raising my cortisols. It was making me I leave a therapy session miserable. So for me, it wasn't beneficial. So that's Reiki is one of those tools where you don't have to talk about it, and you could just have it move through. Called me the next day and he said, I'm really emotional. Is this normal? And I said, yeah, because the energy's moved. And so let's just drink water, and he's going to come into another session next week. But we combined it with coaching. So he saw me for Reiki, then we went back to coaching, did some mindset work, then I was doing Reiki again. So sometimes it's necessary for me to actually do full Reiki sessions with the clients when they're getting stuck and their mind just won't get out of their way.
I just finished this book called The Myth of Normal. I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about going to some shaman in Peru, but it was an ayahuasca thing where he had taken it, and he had been doing ayahuasca. I can't remember how many years, but he would be part of these groups, and he would see these people that had these epiphanies and these breakthroughs and these visions, but he never had these visions. So every time he'd be like, here it goes again. I didn't do it, but he kept coming back, kept coming back, until finally it did hit him at one point. And these shaman that he was with, like the next morning, I guess it was throughout the night, the next morning, that these people had never met him before, these particular shamans, but they knew every little problem that he ever had as a kid, and the traumas that he had, and how it was blocking, and it created a very dense energy in himself that would not allow him to be open-minded and experience things. But they finally got it, and then he had this breakthrough and these visions and whatnot. And so when you're telling me about the Reiki, it's almost a similar experience. It seems like it's a way of taking energy, taking an unknown realm of energy, or of reality, I guess, and then manipulating it to improve somebody's.
Well, each Reiki practitioner, when they're attuned, has different gifts, because Reiki itself is an ancient Japanese modality. It's not a religion, but it's just a form of healing. So every one of them, and so is obviously shamans, are energy healers. For me, I'm a little bit different because naturally I'm intuitive. So those aren't things that I bring into my coaching, but when I'm doing Reiki, it does come out. I am guided to move trauma through their body.
So that leads me directly to religion. It's not a religion. Reiki is not a religion. However, I grew up in a small town, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, very religious, my best friend's Catholic, so I'd go to catechism with him, along with all of these books that I've been reading. And, I read the Quran and the Book of Mormon, and I know Mormons, and I know, Muslims, and I know other Christians and Catholics and Jews, and like and everybody has their own way and answers to life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those people look on energy healing as like with a negative connotation, like of the devil, right? Mm-hmm. Now, other people are more open-minded and are like, yeah, no, this is a positive thing, and God has given us these tools, right? Mm-hmm. Other people are like, no, that's opening Pandora's box. Mm-hmm. I just, have you come across those conversations? Have any of your clients been religious in a particular religion and mm-hmm. it's like, don't get that thing near me, or don't talk to me? I'm just wondering if you've had adversity because of that.
I personally have not. My clients have been LDS, Mormon. They've been Catholic. They've been Christian. They've been spiritual. They've been Buddhist. Maybe because they know me, like they know who I am and how I am genuinely care about healing them and making them better. So there's that level of trust. So I think that has an impact on who comes to me. When I work on them, if they are Christian, I am calling on the universal light of Jesus. Same with Catholic. Whatever the universal life force that they believe in, because for me, I was a Baptist for 21 years. My dad was a Buddhist. My mom grew up Catholic. So I just have this huge
conversation.
Yeah. So in my household, I was given the choice as a young child. I was sent to Christian school for the educational purposes. But they did not believe in the Christian religion, and they gave me the choice to choose. And so I chose the Christian religion for a long time, over 21 years. And then I got really interested in religions. And so I studied them, and I studied every single one, and they have a lot of similarities. And so my personal view is that everyone's right. And it's just, as long as, I'm not saying Satan worshipers or anything evil. I'm not a proponent in that. But every religion has a component of being similar. And in my belief system, it is that religion, whatever religion speaks to you, is guiding you to the one. So whatever that one is for you, is that's your language. That's what makes most sense to you. And I believe it's all the same. We have one God, so.
The rose by any other name is still a rose. Or the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. There's a lot of interesting things about that. I feel like we've touched on a lot of important things. Is there anything, if there's somebody out there that's listening to this podcast mm-hmm. that is having an issue with life, how could they and why would they get a hold of you?
Well, they can get a hold of me through one of my social media outlets.
Which is?
I'm on Facebook, Beyond Better Life. I'm on Instagram at Heather Nicole Official. You can find me on beyondbetterlife.com. And the reason why they should reach out to me to see if I am a match is because I meet them exactly where they're at. And if they want somebody to coach them that has been where they're at, I've been given a lot of life challenges, and it gives me hope and solace to think that I went through all of those things so that I can empathize and help others. Because the things that I have gone through have made me stronger. Like I said, I've dealt with anxiety and depression, and I have children with special needs. I've been through a divorce. I've been a caregiver. I've had breast cancer, and I'm sober now, and I've gone through addiction. So if you come to me and you smoke cigarettes, been there. You come to me, you drink a lot, been there. You come to me and you overeat, been there. So every aspect of life, I've had that experience, and I've been through it. So I don't have judgment. I don't, because the behavior of a person does not equal their value. And I can see that clearly. So if they want to feel whole and seen for who they are to the core and not be judged on their behaviors, so we can have a starting point, then I would be their person.
You know what I really like about your answer is that nowhere in there did you mention any certification of any particular thing, right? Whether it's nutrition, whether it's coaching, whether it's Reiki, whatever it is, because those are all labels. Those are all, in my mind, yes, it does improve your ability to understand situations, but the true ability to help somebody comes from within. And I feel like your life experiences have really set you apart and have really given you insight and the ability to help people at whatever aspect they're at with no judgment. And I think that is important because people don't want to ask for help. They don't want to put themselves out there because then they have to look in the mirror and they have to say, oh crap, this is ugly and I don't want to look, and I damn sure don't want anybody else to look at this and see me in this light. Right. And so I think it's important to talk to somebody that you know is not going to judge you. And the only way that you've been able to get to that point is from your own experiences of adversity. And that's, again, the whole point of this podcast, the Move podcast, is taking adversities and moving to help others, right? So you're like the epitome of that. And I look up to that, and I think you're doing good stuff, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more conversations. But is there anything that I've missed as far as talking about your practice and what you can do for others?
I think you've covered so many aspects.
There's a lot more stuff, but I don't want to just be like, right?
There's so much, but thank you for saying that. Is that, I've walked through the fire, so yeah, I just know what it's like to be in the fire, and I like to give people hope. That's why I'm so authentic with my story and transparent, because I want people to know that it is possible, like whatever you're going through, financial hardship, health hardship, finding your self-worth, all of it can be transformed at any moment. And I think we have covered it all, because my program, I'm actually launching a new membership program because I found that a lot of people could not afford my one-on-one services, or it was a stretch for them. And my mission is to get the most people help as possible, right? So I'm launching Beyond Better Life membership coaching. So it's group coaching at a monthly cost, very nominal cost, and they'll get group coaching weekly. And in that coaching package, they will get the nutrition, they will get the mindset, the embodiment work, the breath work, the meditation, the mindfulness, everything that they need at the time will be there, not only with live coaching, but also recorded courses that are at their tip of their fingers through an app. So that's something that I'm really excited that's coming out. And then I also have my one-on-one services, but they are limited because I give so much time to them. I have a limit of 10 spaces at a time.
Basically, for anybody that's listening, the biggest thing that she also said right now is that anything in your life can be transformed at any moment. So if you're driving the car and you're having issues with life, guess what? You can transform yourself. You can transform that situation at any moment. I don't think that we can do that by ourselves a lot of times, because the mind that created the problems is not the mind that can solve those problems. And so it is imperative that we reach out to others to give ourselves a hand. And, you know, I had this, I don't know if it's a vision or a daydream, probably is a daydream. And it was that every person that's on the basketball court has a coach. They're the ones that are playing. The ones that are sitting in the bleachers, they don't need a coach. So if your life is defined and you just want to sit on the bleachers, that's cool. Thank you for your viewership. But if you're wanting to play, if you're wanting to get out and you're wanting the best for your life and you're wanting to take whatever it is to the next level, you can transform at any moment. And I think that find Heather on, say it again,
beyondbetterlife.com.
Reach out to her and see. There's a one-on-one 30-minute consultation, right? That's what.
Yeah, there's a complimentary consultation. You have nothing to lose.
Throw all your life problems at her and see what she does.
See what happens. See if we're a match.
That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the analogy of the basketball because, you know, it's so great is, yeah, you have to be on the court. You have to be in the field of life actually playing. That's the first step, right? And like, praise to you when you get out on that court. But that coach on the sidelines, he can see, he's not attached. He or she can see the 360 view that you cannot see because you're in the game. And that's what a life coach does for your life. Is they're on the outside, they can see, they're above, and they can see the 360 degrees sometimes that you can't because you're in it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Heather, thank you for coming all the way out to the sticks in order to be in my studio. I appreciate your time coming out here, and we're going to do some good stuff. So, and everybody out there, whoever's listening and whoever's not, thank you as well, and we'll see you next time on the Move Podcast.